Hello band members, this video is about rhythm sheet number 7, which is on page 46 of your beginner band book. This is our last rhythm sheet in the book, so if you've made it this far, congratulations! This rhythm sheet talks a lot about 16th notes, so we'll learn how to count a full measure of 16th notes and then lots of different combinations of 16th notes. This worksheet is pretty challenging, so we have to make sure we are always tapping our foot. Tap your foot. We have to make sure we're always counting in our heads, and we'll take this worksheet pretty slowly so we can make sure we have time to count and tap and know what we're playing. Let's start with line 1. In line 1, we play all of our different subdivisions to get down to our 16th notes. So we'll start with a full measure of quarter notes, then a full measure of eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then a full measure of 16th notes, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Those are the syllables we use to count 16th notes. We'll say our number, E like egg, and like this and that, and a like apple. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And then measure 4, 3 more eighth notes. Let's try playing line 1. 1, 2, ready, play. And I forgot to tell you, I'm playing D on flute, so if you play flute, trombone, or bass, go ahead and play a D with me. If you're playing clarinet or trumpet, play an E. And if you are playing saxophone, play a B. That way we can play the same pitch. Let's look at our next line. Line 2 is where we start switching back and forth from our 16th notes to our 8th notes. So we'll play faster notes for our 16th notes and slower for our 8th notes. We'll count the first measure. We just learned how to count our 16th notes. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Then those 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I think I have to sneeze. And then more 16th notes. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And for that last measure on line 2, 1 and 2 and 3, rest. Let's try it. 1, 2, line 2, ready, play. 4. Let's try that a little bit slower. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, ready and a, play E and a. Alright, let's move on to line 3. Line 3, we start leaving out some of our 16th notes. When we combine two 16th notes, we get one 8th note. So, in measure 9, we have our first two 16th notes. We would say 1 E. And how we're going to do this is our 8th note will take whatever the count our next 16th note would be. So that first beat, 1 E and 8th notes will last two 16th notes, so there's no A, we move on to the next number. We have the same count for all 4 beats in this measure. How convenient is that? So this measure will be 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Then we have a full measure of 16th notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Back to that same rhythm we just counted in measure 9. How do we count that first beat? 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and then the same rhythm we played to end line 2, we play to end line 3, 1 and 2 and 3, rest. Let's try line 3. 1 E and a 2 E and a, ready and a, play E and a. Okay, in measure 13, we switch our beat around. So measure 9, we had 1 E and that 8th note took 2 16th notes. In measure 13, we flip it, and our 8th note takes our first 2 16th notes. So we'll count 1, we won't say E, just 1, and then our 16th notes are on, and a. So measure 13, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Then another full measure of 16th notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Back to that same exact rhythm, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. And then 3 quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, rest. Let's try line 4. 1, 2, ready, play. Check out measure 5. We have the measure of 16th notes that we're great at counting now. Let's count it together. Ready, go. 1 E and a 2 E and a, ready, or 3 E and a 4 E and a, my bad. Then we move on to what we counted in measure 13. So we have our 8th note first. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. And then what we counted in measure 9, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. So what we'll do is at the end of measure 18, going into measure 19, we'll have 4 16th notes in a row. If we count those 2 measures together, listen and figure out where it switches. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2. Oop, I didn't switch. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. So we'll switch in the middle just like that. Make sure you're following along so you know where to switch. And then in measure 20, we have 2 beats of 16th notes. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, and then 2 quarter notes, 3, 4. Let's try line 5. 1, 2, line 5, ready, play. All right, we made it through. Let's check out measure 6, or line 6 next. In line 6, we start combining full beats of all 16th notes with those 2 different combinations of 16th notes that we've already learned to count. So, in each measure, we'll have a number, E and a, and then we'll have something that's either a number and a, or number E and. So, for example, measure 21, we start with 1 E and A. And then our next beat, 8th note and then 2/16, is that 2 and A or 2 E and. That beat is 2 and A because it has our 8th note first, and after our 8th note we say and. So this measure is 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 and a. But then, measure 22, we change it. We have 1 E and a, and then do we have 2 E and or 2 and a? We have our 2/16 first, so we have 2 E and then our whole measure would be 1 E and a 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and. Oops, excuse me, I have the hiccups. In measure 23, we take out those whole beats of 16th notes and we'll just play those two rhythms we know. So our first two beats are the same. Are those 1 E and 2 E and or 1 and a 2 and a? They are 1 E and 2 E and. So then after that we have to have 3 and a 4 and a. And then in measure 24, it's the same thing as measure 20. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, 4. Let's try line 6. 1, 2, ready, play. Alright, that line was pretty tricky. If you need another chance, go ahead and rewind and try that again. Let's look at line 7 next. Line 7, we're still using those two main rhythms that we know, plus our full beat of 16th notes. So we start measure 25. It's just the opposite of what we did in measure 23. We start with 1 and a 2 and a, and then those third and fourth beats, are they 3 and a 4 and a, or 3 E and 4 E and? They are 3 E and 4 E and. So that measure will be 1 and a 2 and a 3 E and 4 E and. Then we're on to measure 26. Measure 26, we start and end with a full beat of 16th notes. So we have 1 E and a, 4 E and a. But what's in the middle? Is that 1 E and, 2 E and 3 E and, or 2 and a 3 and a? It is 2 E and 3 E and. So we'll count this measure 1 E and a, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and a. Measure 27, we're switching and we have our whole beat of 16th notes. So be really careful, read your rhythms. Beat 1, is it 1 and a or 1 E and? Beat 1 is 1 and a because our 8th note is first. And then our second beat, we switch, 2 E and. Third beat, all 16th notes, 3 E and a. And is our fourth beat 4 and a or 4 E and? It's 4 and a. So that full measure, 1 and a 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and. And last measure for this line, we have the same rhythm for the first two beats. Is it 1 and a or 1 E and? 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and a 4. Let's play line 7. 1, 2, ready, play. All right, moving on to line 8. Line 8 is going to show us how to play a new rhythm. So we've gotten pretty good now at playing 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and, even switching between them. But line 8 will show us a new rhythm. Let's count our first full measure of 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Now look at measure 30. If you have a 16th note first, that will get our number, and then, like we said, an 8th note is 2 16th notes. So what 2 syllables will that 8th note take up? It will take up E and. Now we only count the first syllable that it lasts for, so we'll count that 1E. And then our last 16th note in a beat gets what syllable? So we're going to count these: 1E, a 2E, a 3E, a 4E, Kind of tricky. Make sure we're counting all of them in our head. So we'll think in our head 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and then we'll know to play 1E, a 2E, a 3E, a 4E, Then measure 31, we're going to go back and forth from a full beat of 16th notes to that 2E, and then another full beat of 16th notes and another one of those new rhythms. Then measure 32, 2 more of those, and a quarter note. Let's count the measures 31 and 32 together. Ready, go. 1E and a 2E, a 3E and a 4E, a 1E, a 2E, a 3. Rest. Let's see if we can play line 8. 1, 2, ready, play. All right, moving on to line 9. Line 9 adds that new rhythm we just counted, 1E, a 2E, a 3E, a 4E, in with our other rhythms we know. Our full measure of 16th notes, or full beat of 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and the other two rhythms, 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So we have 4 different rhythms now. Let's check it out. Measure 33, we start with a full beat of 16th notes, 1E and a. Then which rhythm do we have next? Is it 2E a, 2E and, or 2 and a? It's the first one, 2E a. Then beats 3 and 4 are the same. Are they 3E a 4E a, or 3E and 4E and, or 3 and a 4 and a? They are 3E and 4E and. So let's try counting this whole measure together. Ready, go. 1E and a 2E, a 3E and 4E and. Let's try that one more time. Ready, go. 1E and a 2E, a 3E and 4E and. And we're on to measure 34. Measure 34, we don't have that new rhythm, no 1 and a 1E, a 2E, a 3E, a 4E. Instead, we throw it back to our old rhythms. Throwback to Thursday, but it's not Thursday today where I'm recording this, so I hope maybe it's Thursday when you're watching this. In measure 34, our first beat, 1 and a, and then next beat, 2E and we finish with 2 beats of 16th notes, 3E and a, 4E and a. So put it together, ready, go. 1 and a 2E and 3E and a 4E and a. Measure 35. We do have our new rhythm this time. Which rhythm do we have on beat 1 though? It's not our new rhythm, it's either 1 and a or 1E and. 8th note is first, so it's 1 and a. That second beat is the new rhythm, 2E, a. Third beat, is it 3E and or 3 and a? 3E and then last beat is 4 and a. So let's count this whole measure. Ready, go. 1 and a, 2E, a, 3E and 4 and a. Let's try that again. Ready, go. 1 and a, 2E, a, 3E and 4 and a. All right, we're almost done. Measure 36 has the same rhythm for 3 beats. Which is it? 1E and, 2E and, 3E and, 4. Let's try all of line 9. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, good job if you made it through. If not, go ahead and try it again as many times as you need. This is a really tricky rhythm sheet. Let's look at our last line now, line 10. Line 10 uses all of those rhythms. We can switch as many times as we want, so let's figure out how to count it beat by beat. Measure 37. We have 1E, a. That's our first beat. 1E, a. Then, eighth note comes last on the second beat. 2E and, eighth note comes first on the third beat, 3 and a, and no eighth note in the fourth beat, 4E and a. That's basically how we count those. If the eighth note is first, number and a. If the eighth note is second, number E, a. And then if the eighth note is third, number E and. So all of those would be 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a, and the eighth note counts for 2. Let's look at measure 38 now. 38, start with a full measure of 16th, or full beat of 16th notes, 1E and a, then 2E, a, 3E, a, because our eighth note is second, 2E, a, 3E, a. And then our eighth note is first on beat 4, 4 and a. Okay, measure 39, mostly all 16th notes. We only have one eighth note. Check the beat that it's in. It's in beat 3, and it is the second note in beat 3. So that beat is 3E, a. Now, measure 39 will be 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E, a, 4E and a. And measure 40 is our very last measure, and then we've learned how to count all of them. Congratulations. Measure 40, first beat, eighth note is third, so we have 1E and. Second beat, eighth note is first, 2 and a. Third beat, eighth note is second, 3E, a. And fourth beat is a quarter note. So that full measure, count with me. Ready, go. 1E and, 2 and a, 3E, a, 4. Let's try line 10. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, let's go all the way up to the top and try playing this from the top of the rhythm sheet all the way down to the bottom. Don't worry if you make a mistake, you can rewind and play with me as many times as you want. Here we go, from measure 1 all the way to measure 40. 1, 2, ready, go. Congratulations for making it through Rhythm Sheet 7, the last of the rhythm sheets in the entire beginner band book. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this video.